Tommy, let's talk about the Tammy Fytch and Brian Lee poolside, I guess, press conference that you did.
Right.
I guess, one, where did y'all film this at? I know Cornette has said it, but just to rehash things, where was this filmed at?
We went to the cameraman was named Kevin Johnson. He worked for Big Mama's Studios out of Knoxville, and he had a friend that lived in Knoxville. And when we went to the front door of this friend in Knoxville, it was a girl I went to school with. Her name is Mary Ellum. It's just a coincidence. And we were at her house as a friend of the cameraman, and we went to their house. Jim called my radio show. Of course, I do a radio show with Cece, and he thought he remembered it at my house. But no, we recorded Tammy's tips, which you'll be seeing a little bit later on too. We did that at my house, but we did the poolside press conference at a house in Knoxville.
Okay, so it's not an apartment complex?
No.
Okay, I don't know why I'm thinking it was an apartment complex. Okay, so it's in Knoxville, a house there, and okay, so obviously you show up. It's all obviously scripted. She's not going to let you in the house. Ew, no, you meet us around the back. You got to walk around, right? So
and that's the last thing we recorded too. We only had a few minutes because Brian Lee took so long on the other part, where I only had like 3 takes before the sun went down, and the first 2 takes we couldn't get the camera angle right, where he was at the wrong place behind me for her to slam the door in my face, and then we got it on the 3rd time.
Wait, so because it's a pretty long, I'll call it promo or scene where Brian Lee is talking, and they cut away a couple of times to show, the feud and what's been going on with him and Tracy. So go ahead and tell me that. How long did all that take for Brian? You said he couldn't get it right the first time. Which, I mean, that's understandable. It's a long scene he was cutting.
Not the first time. It took us about 3 hours to do his part.
Just his part? Okay.
Yeah, because I'll never forget. I mean, it was a hot summer day. I'm the only one wearing a suit jacket and dress clothes. And behind the camera was the cameraman and Jim. Jim giving direction to Brian and Tammy and me. Brian Hildebrand was there. And in the pool, we had the Bruce brothers who came with Brian Lee and Candido. And which was really fun because whenever at the end when Tammy takes off her robe, I knew I couldn't stare down at her butt because there's Chris Candido sitting right next, out the pool, and I wasn't going to just stare at her ass while she walked away. If you'll notice, I just looked straight ahead. Brian Lee would have won the Tim Horner Award if you knew all the backstory about that.
Oh, well, tell me about it then. He just couldn't get it right.
Well, he just couldn't do it to Jim's liking. At the very first, I say we're here poolside with Tammy Fytch, and then me and Tammy go back and forth. Then they had to get several, because Brian would mess up, they'd have to get like facial shots of me so they could cut into what Brian was saying so they could make the edit. But he just couldn't get across what he wanted to do. He would mess up so many times, we'd start over. There was like 4 segments that he had to talk through to introduce a segment, like a turn segment, like whenever he turned on Tracy in Freedom Hall in Johnson City, things like that. And the very last part didn't really take that long, where he said that, I said, would you sign with somebody like Tammy Fytch? And he said, well, you look at the house I'm living at, the car I'm driving, and look at the girl or whatnot. And that went back really fast, but the first part took like 3 hours, and it was like death out there. It was so hot. Yeah,
because you said it. It was 3. I want to say we just did this episode. It hadn't aired yet, but it hadn't aired as the time of us recording this. But you did 3 different segments, and it was him. Or it was like 3 different times where he threw it to something that had happened in the ring between him and Tracy or something else. So yeah, I could see that. I could see how. So okay, I don't want to say Jim gets hot headed, but I can imagine. So Cornette's watching this the whole time. You said he's getting frustrated. What's Cornette doing when Brian Lee can't get it straight?
Oh, he just go. How typical Jim. You just get what you need to do is just make sure whenever you say, remember that, you need to make that emphasis on the very end of your statement and be excited about it. And because Brian was just so dead on her doorknob, but it didn't help with the Bruce brothers playing in the pool right in front of us, but it was just like, and it just took him a long time. I'll just never forget just sitting there thinking, dear God, I am sweating. I look like crap, and I just want to get out of here. I enjoyed doing it. And we taped that on a Sunday. The next day, we were in Council, Virginia doing a TV taping. And the biggest highlight for me is I sat through the production meeting, which was the best parts of TV taping. You had to get there like 4 hours early, and 1 hour, Jim would tell you what would happen in each show. And to see his vision of it, it might not have turned out exactly the way he envisioned it, but to hear his vision of it, how he wanted it to do, was just awesome. I just love going to TVs for that. But he said, and we're going to feature Tommy Noy, and he's got his own segment. And I'm thinking, oh boy, they're going to make a big deal out of this. And like I said, it's the very first time that I got to say my name on TV, because poor old Bob Caudle didn't know who I was. And Dutch Mantell got paid by Brian Matthews, who was the other announcer at the time, and Brian would pay him extra money so he'd promote the radio station he was at, things like that. So Dutch didn't have much to say to me, but so I really liked it later on whenever Jim Ross came in, because every show Jim Ross would pitch it to me. He'd say the legendary Tommy Noy, and I just want to go hug Jim Ross's neck.
I hear you. So before we move away from the pool scene, anything
pool
else
side,
about the pool scene that behind the scenes that we want to know, besides the fact that in the pool, Candido is there with the Bruise Brothers, and Brian Lee is messing up his lines left and right, and I can see Corny getting high pitched. Man, what the fuck? God damn, Brian, can you hurry the fuck? I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. I love Cornette to death, man. He's awesome. But other than anything else we need to know about the pool scene and Jimmy getting hot and you sweating because it's hotter than 6 suns out there because it's the middle of fucking June. And it's the summertime.
And I'm not the smallest man in the world either. And it's just, it amazes me. I go back and look at it, and I've got hair. I don't have that much hair anymore. But it was just, I go back and watch that with really fond memories, because I did a lot of things with Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and a lot of things had to do with Tammy and Chris. And I was really good friends with both. And I actually made the audition tape. I had all the TV shows for Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and anybody ordered the TV shows, I'd be the one who had the professional tapes, and I would go from beta and I'd record them all for the people, and Brian Hildebrand would send them out. So anybody wanted a promo, or if they wanted an audition tape, they'd always come to me. Tommy Rich came to me one time, and I said no, because I hated him anyway. But I always loved Chris and Tammy. They'd come over after a Smoky Mountain show in Morristown. We'd have pizza or whatnot, and I just love Chris and Tammy.